Welcome into another edition of the GigEm247 Sports Podcast, a post-game edition after Texas A&M's 41-10 drubbing of Missouri on Saturday afternoon. In the lone ranked matchup of the week, it was the Aggies who did all the talking and made all the noise. We got Carter Karels with us. Carter, starting there, we'll get to Connor Wigman. Obviously, he makes his return after a 3-game absence. Just for Texas A&M to go into the bye on this sort of note, just what were your impressions of what you saw from them today?
Well, you go into this game 4-1 for the Aggies, and you're thinking, they've beaten the teams they were expected to beat: Arkansas, Bowling Green, Mississippi State, Florida. This was the statement win that showed you, hey, this team means business. Not only beating Missouri, but, belt to butt, right? Or maybe something more colorful than that.
Yep. That's what Cam Dewberry used, I believe.
Cam Dewberry said it after the game. And, just what a win under a first-year head coach, a top 10 opponent. Spread, I think A&M was favored 2.5. But now all of a sudden, probably premature before the game to start talking about college football playoff. But now, hey, this is a team that they have everything in front of them now. They're 5-1. They have a bye week, and then their remaining schedule lines up to where you could really see this team making the playoff. They may not even have to beat Texas, and at 10-2, they could be in the playoff. And I know people will say, hey, don't get too far ahead, but when you beat a top 10 opponent like this, and yeah, Missouri probably not as good as advertised, but to beat them like that and with the way they played and the way that Connor Wigman looked, this is about as great of a game as Texas A&M could play all season. And just to think about where they were against Notre Dame, it's a completely different team. It was unidentifiable from that first week. And so, yeah, I just think if you're a Texas A&M fan, we got people on our board talking about, penalties and Jaden Hill.
Yeah.
No, you have to smile because this went as well as it could possibly go.
No doubt. And let's just make no bones about it, right? Like, Missouri had not played well to start the year, but Texas A&M had a lot to do with everything that went on today. And I think you can sit there and say, man, they didn't look like a top 10 team, but then you have to, on the other side of things, say, you know what? Texas A&M controlled the line of scrimmage. They got after the quarterback. I believe they finished with 6 sacks. Passing game with Connor Wigman making his return. And let's kind of jump there because that's obviously the big story of the day. He finishes 18 of 22 for 276 yards. Passing game, completes 82% of his passes. And Mike Elko, after the game, really had a fiery defense because there's been a lot that has been said about Connor Wigman so far this year. And, he responded in the best way possible, and that's to go out on the field, put a performance like he did. And you know what? That's the biggest way to silence a lot of doubters, is to go out and put out a performance like that. Passing game looked really, really sharp as it has all season. What impressed you about his performance, and what did you make of Mike Elko's comments after the game?
I think with Connor, just the confidence that he had. He didn't look like somebody who'd been off for a few weeks and, didn't have quite the chemistry, or maybe he was a little rusty. He didn't have any of that. He was confident. He was throwing in the tight windows. And really the biggest thing were the back shoulder throws that he made to Noah Thomas, and made probably 3 or 4 of them today that were exceptional. Guys that weren't open that he threw open. To me, it's probably the best game that he's played at Texas A&M, considering the competition, considering the stage, and the time that he had off. And there were any questions about where the quarterback situation was, it's over. He won this job. This is his from now on. I felt like I was taking crazy pills the last few weeks because I think the backup quarterback is always the most popular guy on the team when things aren't going well. And, Connor Wigman obviously had a terrible game against Notre Dame, but we come to find out, it's because he sprained his AC joint in the first quarter. And Notre Dame's got a pretty good defense. Doesn't excuse how poorly he played, but I think when you think about the injury that held him out for a few weeks, it makes sense why he played so poorly. And, Marcel Reed, you got to give props to what that kid did over the last few weeks. I think when you looked at his performance, though, he didn't quite get better like you maybe wanted to see him to if he had a chance to overtake Connor. So I think going into the day, A&M's coaching staff seemed like there was a lot of confidence there. It was almost a no-brainer to them that Connor Wigman would be the starter, not just because of what they've seen from Reed, but what they've seen from Wigman. 2023 Connor Wigman is a far better quarterback than what we've seen from Marcel Reed this year. So my thought was if he's anywhere close to what he was last year before that injury he suffered, he should be your guy. And he proved it today that he still has that in him. Now, talking about Mike Elko's comments, my goodness, dropped an F-bomb in there. That was fun. But it has to be a breath of fresh air listening to that because, fans were going nuts over the last few weeks. I mean, they were saying Connor Wigman is fat. They were saying, some things I probably shouldn't even say because they were so absurd. I mean, just the rumors. Obviously, the Dr. Oz thing, that didn't go well because it was just kind of a funny thing that went viral. And all of a sudden, people are, using that to kind of bash him personally. And it wasn't fair. I mean, Mike Elko mentioned, you can criticize him as a quarterback. You can criticize him for not making the right throw or for a poor performance. But to see the Dr. Oz clip, I mean, he didn't say this, but to see the Dr. Oz clip and say, oh, he sucks because of this, it's just some guys might be goofy. I mean, I kind of liken him to Patrick Mahomes has a weird voice. I think Connor Wigman, maybe you could say that with him. That doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback or a bad person or a bad leader or whatever you want to say. So the things that were said about him during that time were just crazy. And it was great to see him do what he did today because I think all of that is gone now. I think that people are finally going to turn a page. It's not going to be who's the best quarterback. It's not going to be, oh, Wigman gained too much weight. It's just not true. He's the guy that everyone expected him to be going into this year. Whether he's a first-round pick like some suggested, we'll see. He still has to compound more performances like that. He still doesn't have the sample size to say, hey, I'm a surefire, first-round kind of talent. But this was the start of proving that, hey, what they were saying about me before the year, that's who I am. And so going in the bye week, obviously have to feel good for him and another week to kind of rest up and be healthy before going to Mississippi State.
Yeah, I think my feeling on this, right, is there's not really ever room as you go through a season, and I get it. Fans are going to have emotional reactions one way or another, right? But there's a nuanced discussion that you can have here that when you look at Marcel Reed, first of all, he deserves a tremendous amount of credit. And going 3-0 as a starter has kept A&M in the playoff chase. A&M is in the playoff chase because he beat Arkansas. He went on the road and beat Florida in his first start. That's tremendously difficult to do. I don't care if Florida is struggling and obviously everything going on with Billy Napier. That's not easy to do. Beating Arkansas is not easy to do. And in that same conversation, you can also say he's a young quarterback that's still developing and he's not a finished product, just like Connor Wigman isn't a finished product. And, Connor Wigman still has areas he's got to grow and he's got to stay on the field and he's got to be more consistent. But when Connor Wigman's at his best, like he was today, he gives this offense a different juice where they are right now. And you see it in the passing game. The downfield threats were there. And so I think there's room to have that nuanced conversation of, listen, Connor Wigman, when it comes to the passing game, open some things up maybe for Le'Veon Moss too when the passing game is clicking. He was the first to say he had a clunker against Notre Dame. You know what? It certainly happens. It does happen. And it doesn't mean he's a bad quarterback, and it doesn't mean he shouldn't be the starter moving forward. It was a bad game, but it also, he responded to adversity today. in a big way. And I think that says a lot about him as well. And so we're going to take a quick break. We're going to get Carter back on the line here. We'll be right back after a quick break. Welcome back into the GigEm247 Sports Podcast. We have got Carter back with us, joining us from the stadium. Sometimes technology kind of happens, but we got him back with us. Carter, I think we can kind of switch gears and look at this defensive side of the ball once kind of got through my thoughts on Connor Wigman there. And this defensive side, I think, is another big story. And look, 6 sacks, they really got after Brady Cook. And yeah, I think you can say a lot of the same stuff we said about the offensive side of the ball. And, this Missouri offense has a lot of weapons, but A&M just absolutely did not allow any facet of that offense to get going today.
Yeah, it was a combination of a lot of things. Obviously Nick Scorton leading the charge and being dominant for the second straight week. I mean, obviously he's had a great season, but now he's got 6.5 TFLs over the last couple of weeks. He's got 3 or 4 sacks over the last couple of weeks. And then the coverage was really great. I mean, there were some busts. You saw Jaden Hill, get put in a couple bad situations. You saw Will Lee certainly have some PIs and some things to clean up. But this is an elite receiving core that brought back, all their top guys. Obviously, Luther Burden's the big name to know. Up until garbage time, Burden had 49 yards receiving. And then running the ball, now part of it is they went down so much early that they really didn't run the ball that much for, almost the whole game. But, this is a guy, Nate Noel, who had almost 200 rushing yards last week, a couple of weeks ago in his last game. And I don't know his final line, but it wasn't anywhere close to that. I think they held Missouri to under 70 rushing yards. So really just an impressive performance all around for this defense. They're starting to really put it together. Like, I think the first couple of weeks, we're all wondering, where's this pass rush? Where's the run defense? Now, oh gosh, I mean, I remember I was counting this run defense out early in the season. Now I feel like a fool because they're holding everybody under 100 yards rushing, and they're getting after the quarterback like crazy. I mean, Brady Cook was really running for his life at times. And again, part of that's good coverage. Part of it's him holding the ball and eventually the guys get to him. But just felt like it was such a great balance between run defense, good coverage, and, getting after the quarterback.
Makes me think of the point that Mike Elko made a couple weeks ago when he kind of said, hey, the sack numbers are going to come. We're not panicking about that, but it's that quarterback clock that they've talked about over and over again since the beginning of the year is a quarterback just sitting back there feeling comfortable. And I feel like last year at times A&M had to bring pressure, right, to get after the quarterback, and because they couldn't hold up in the secondary. Now it feels like I can't really remember a time where a quarterback has truly just been able to sit back there and pick A&M apart. And you know what? They've been under pressure. Even you look at last week against Arkansas, Taylor Green's long touchdown throw, right, comes on a scramble. They beat Jaden Hill in coverage. Today, really shut them down. There were a couple big plays, and they had a big play called back. So there's still certainly some things that they have to clean up from a big play perspective, and you've got to buy to be able to do that. And I still think they're trying to figure out what to do in that nickel spot. But from a defensive line standpoint, this defensive line has taken over some games, and today was the latest example of that.
Yeah, I just can't say enough good things about Nick Scorton. We talk so much about what he can do as a pass rusher, but what he can do against the run and setting the edge is is highly impressive. I mean, the guy is just a tackle for loss machine. And again, this is an offense that they faced that was supposed to be really good. And I think these last 2 weeks have been a turning point for this defense and for this defensive line in particular. Because, again, this pass rush wasn't like this the first couple games. Even against Florida, Graham Mertz was pretty comfortable at times throwing the football. But these last couple of weeks, Taylor Green, Brady Cook, they've been running for their lives. They've been getting out of the pocket constantly. I think what we've seen teams try to do to neutralize the pass rush is kind of the quick game stuff. Didn't see that as much in these last couple games, and A&M made them pay for it. You want to sit back and try to, take a few seconds before you're throwing, A&M's going to make you pay. And so I think teams are going to have to adjust how they think against A&M, because you can't just sit back and hold the ball for too long. I also want to mention special teams really quick, just because that punt by Tyler White was one of the funniest punts I've ever seen. I don't know what the heck happened, but it just kind of summed up the day for Missouri, didn't it? Where
it sure did.
I think it's going to be a touchback, and it rolls in a weird way to the 1 yard line. And I think during that point, I was kind of questioning what A&M was doing, because I know they were up, 27-0. I know they're getting the ball at the end of the half, or to begin the next half. But I'm like, why are you running the ball with a minute left at midfield and running the clock out? But after that punt, it was kind of like, okay, like at this point, Missouri's not winning, because if they're going to do a punt like that, like this just isn't Missouri's day.
No doubt. And we got to mention two other unsung heroes, and one that I think it just quietly continues to have, not quietly even anymore, just Le'Veon Moss has another big day with 12 carries for 138 yards, 3 touchdowns. Kind of you want to talk about sucking the air out of the Missouri sideline. Comes right out of halftime with a 75-yard touchdown on the first play from scrimmage to start the second half. That's a big way to just shut down that momentum. And then the other guy I'll mention real quick is Randy Bond. Couple more field goals today. You mentioned on the special teams angle, I think, another really solid day on his front, and did his job. So another really good win, Carter. I know you got a lot to write and thoughts to get to, so we're gonna go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks to everybody for joining us, and we got plenty more to get to. We'll have plenty more coming this week as Texas A&M wins their 5th straight game, moves to 5-1. Will now enjoy a bye before a trip to Mississippi State, and sets up a really, really fun second half of the year. A couple more big home games against LSU and Texas coming up in the second half of the year for a team that now has playoff hopes and sent a big statement today. So thanks again for joining us, everybody. Enjoy your weekend, and we'll be back with you guys soon.